Welcome to another night of City Group. Hope you guys have had a great week this week. Tonight we're diving into Proverbs chapter 6. The last several weeks we've been looking at chapter 5. And tonight we're going to extend on that. There are really two places in our lives that give more credibility to our faith than almost any other area. And that's how we conduct ourselves in our marriages, which we discussed in chapter 5, and then how we conduct ourselves in our workplace or in the marketplace. And that's what we're going to dive into tonight. So if you have your Bibles, grab them and open up to chapter 6. And we're going to read verses 1 through 11 tonight and then spend some time unpacking that. It says here, "My child, if you co-sign a loan for a friend or guarantee the debt of someone you hardly know, if you have trapped yourself by your agreement and are caught by what you said, quick, get out of it if you possibly can. You have placed yourself at your friend's mercy. Now swallow your pride. Go and beg to have your name erased. Don't put it off. Do it now. Don't rest until you do. Save yourself like a deer escaping from a hunter, like a bird fleeing from a net. Take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and be wise. Even though they have no prince, governor, or ruler to make them work, they labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. But you, lazy bones, how long will you sleep? When will you wake up? I want you to learn this lesson. A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber." Now there are some things in here that we could spend a lot of time on, but I want to focus in on two really big ones. And those are based on some characters that we see here. So the first thing that Solomon mentions right in verse 1, he says, "My child." And in some versions it says, "My son." And again, this is another place that he's talking to a child, and he's trying to impart some wisdom and give some insight into the way to conduct life. And in this case, we're talking about that morality in the marketplace, or morality in our workplace. And so this first character, my son, and in this instance, he's the co-borrower, the co-signer on a loan, if you will. And we need to examine how does this person conduct himself? And that's what Solomon's really trying to give him some wisdom for, is how do you conduct yourself? Because he says, if you find yourself in this situation, here's really what you should do. And so he's not really saying anything about don't do it necessarily in this passage, but he's definitely dealing with the situation. So the first thing is, this guy's given his word. He's given a pledge. And in Old Testament times, the giving of a pledge was as simple as giving your word and shaking hands on it. In Abraham's day, there was one other step in where they would place a hand on the thigh and give their pledge, and it was a symbol that was binding, and it was a contract. So he's given his word. And he's expected to honor that pledge, really at any cost. And so Solomon does imply a little bit that this is not necessarily the best position to be in. If you look a little further on, where he says, get out of this if you possibly can. But the thing that we need to look at here next is, what are the implications of his actions? And hold that thought right there, because we're going to go and take a look at the other character. In this case, it's the neighbor. He also mentions the stranger. And if you look in Old Testament times, there were some rules about lending and dealing with your own people, or whether you're dealing with foreigners or outsiders. And so we're taking a look at this guy. And the first question that really comes to mind is, why is this guy getting a loan? And then why is he coming to this son and asking for help? And this is where I really choked on this one a little bit and had a hard time understanding, and was praying about it. And one day it came to me, the Lord revealed it to me, I believe, that fundamentally this passage is about trust, and trust in the provision of God, and trust in His faithfulness and His character to be generous. And we've been talking a lot about this on our Sunday gatherings in Luke chapter 11. But we're going to get a chance to really look at this from a practical standpoint here. And so the first thing that he's doing, he's distrusting God's provision in his life. And he's not only gone into debt for something, but he's unable to secure it on his own. So he's asked for help from a friend or a neighbor. And so going back to the original character, the son, what are the implications of his actions? The first one that comes to mind is that he's in a position of robbing God of his timing and provision in this guy's life. God is a gracious and giving God and wants to give good gifts to all of his children. And when we go outside of that and say, no, I want it now, at whatever price, we rob God of his timing. And this son has entered into that contract and has helped this guy rob God of his provision and his timing. Now, there's an interesting word in here, and it's not showing up in this version. The New Living Translation doesn't use it. But the New American Standard uses this word where he says, in verse 4, don't put it off, go do it now. I'm talking about going and begging to have your name erased. And there's a word in here called importune, and it's a word that we don't really use anymore in the English language. But it comes from the Hebrew word Rahab, to rise up against or to press one's plea. And if you look in the dictionary under importune, it will say, ask someone pressingly and persistently for or to do something. So in this case, what we find is this son's responsibility is to swallow his pride and go and beg to have his name erased. But not just do that, be persistent at it. And this is the image of, as long as this guy's in debt and as long as this son is bound up in the pledge, his responsibility is to go and say, hey, how you doing on that loan? What's going on? Are you able to pay this back? Let's hurry this up. Let's get this done. Let's be free from this debt that you have put yourself in, and me by implication. And so his job is to be pressing, be pleading, and be persistent and go after this guy and make sure that he holds up his word. And that's the other really big value that Solomon draws out here, is the value of our word, the value of that contract. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that next time, and our work ethic and our values there. But tonight, I really want to leave us with some discussion here. So I'd ask you guys to name some times, just really get serious about this, and name some times when you have been in the position of not trusting in God's provision for your life, or perhaps when you've been in that position to be that cosigner and go and in a way steal from God's provision in that person's life. And I know that's a really heavy thing to chew on. So I encourage you guys to just dive in, go after that. And I know there's going to be some stuff that comes up, and we have opportunities for ministry. And I think at the end of this, what I'd like to do is come together as a group and just declare the provision of God over each other's lives, over our families. Because as we've seen in Luke 11, one of the things that Jesus really goes after is kingdom provision. And if we chase after kingdom provision, then I don't think we're going to see ourselves so often in this place of distrusting God's provision, because we're going to see it. So let's go after that tonight, guys, and be blessed and have a great week.